Ladies, we're going to get started. God teaches us through change. One of those lessons is through the life cycle of the monarch butterfly. Our speaker, Kristy Dodd, has a passion for butterflies, but a special place in her heart for monarchs. She is published on this topic in 2 magazines. Kristy needs no introduction because we all know and love her. So please give her your undivided attention and start by putting your cell phones on silent. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And the microphone. I'm not used to using a microphone. I will do my best. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I do have a soft voice, so just raise your hand if you can't hear me. I'm just very honored to be able to present this to you all, and I'm just so overwhelmed by how many of you all are here to hear this talk. But you're going to be learning a lot about monarch butterflies, hopefully things you didn't know before. And I brought some little caterpillars here. They're in the little caterpillar keeper. You're welcome to come up and take a look at them. There's 3 caterpillars in there. And I'll be telling you a little bit more about their life cycle. But there's a plant in there that they are eating. Does anybody know what is the plant that monarch caterpillars must have in order to survive? Who knows? Anybody? Kay?
You told me earlier, isn't it milkweed?
It's milkweed. Milkweed. It doesn't sound like much of a plant, but all butterflies have what's called a host plant. And for many of them, it's the only plant that their little caterpillars will eat. So for monarchs, it is the milkweed, and there is some there in the little case there for you to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm used to having a microphone.
You have to feel like you're eating it. It doesn't feel really weird to make it work.
What's it, Sheila?
You have to feel like you're eating it.
It doesn't look very appetizing. But anyway, yes, I have milkweed in my yard, and I have like 4 different kinds of it in my yard. You have a little paper on a sheet on your table there that has all the different kinds of milkweed. And Dearness Gardens usually has quite a supply of different kinds of milkweed if you are interested in having more of it. You also have a little pouch there, a little white pouch with some milkweed seeds in it. So that's one of the things I hope to encourage you all to do is plant the seeds in your yard so you will have milkweed. It's not hard to plant. Pardon?
What time of year do you plant them?
This is the perfect time of year. That's why I'm happy to give this talk at this time, because in the fall is a good time to plant the milkweed seeds so that in the spring, they will come up, and the little, hopefully, butterflies will visit your yard and lay their eggs on it. But it's not hard to plant. You just sprinkle it in the dirt. It doesn't really matter if it's a shady place or a sunny place. They don't seem to care really. Just sprinkle it in the dirt, put a little soil over it and water it, and it will germinate over the winter months. It needs some cold to be able to germinate, and then in the spring you will see little green sprouts come up, and you will hopefully have monarch butterflies visiting your yard. If you plant it, they will come. So that's a little bit.
Is that milkweed of the purple flower on it?
No, a lot of people confuse butterfly bush with milkweed, and the butterfly bush is an important thing to have in your yard for the adult butterflies because it has nectar. And I'll be telling you more about some other plants. There's a list of all different kinds of plants that have a lot of nectar for the adult butterflies. But the caterpillars can't eat that. They have to have milkweed. So that's the difference between them. But you have to have both in your yard. You know, you have food for the adult butterflies and then something for the caterpillars also. You have to have both. So hope you all will when you finish learning about them. I was going to tell you a couple interesting facts about monarchs. A female monarch lays around 500 eggs. Amazing. They are very tiny. They're about the size of a period. And unfortunately, though, usually only about 2 of them survive. So I often bring a few into our home and have a caterpillar keeper to protect them, particularly from the birds, because they will. That's one of their favorite foods, caterpillars. So that's one interesting thing. The caterpillars are little eating machines. That's all they do. You'll see how fat these have gotten, and they started from a little egg the size of a period. So you'll see how big they get. They're little eating machines. They eat about 2,700 times their weight, which might be compared to a 6-pound baby gaining enough to weigh 8 tons. It's like a schoolhouse. So they do nothing but eat all day long. And then when they get ready, they've satiated, I guess, their appetite. They get ready to make a little a home to rest for the winter called a chrysalis. A lot of people think butterflies make a cocoon. In fact, Eric Carle, in his book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, talked about butterflies making a cocoon. And I didn't get a chance to meet with him and tell him he was wrong. They make a chrysalis. And I'll be telling you a little bit more about their life cycle, but the chrysalis is beautiful. It's a bright green, the little gold band around the top. And that's where they rest for about 2 weeks. And then the butterfly, the caterpillar actually melts inside when it's inside. They don't crawl into the chrysalis. They build the chrysalis around them. And from what I understand, they like the butterfly, the caterpillar's body just kind of melts. And the parts of it just develop into a monarch butterfly while it's inside the chrysalis. And as it changes, you can actually see the butterfly's wings inside the chrysalis. If you're watching it, you can see the wings, and eventually, of course, the butterfly comes out, and the fun of it is releasing it and watching it fly away so it can lay more eggs and make more little caterpillars. Any questions about that? I'll be telling you more about their life cycle. It's over on the chart there is by the table. Shows the different parts of the metamorphosis the caterpillar goes through. But monarchs are one of the only butterflies that migrate. There are others, but probably monarchs are one of the best known, and they actually migrate from here, from our area. They fly across the Gulf of Mexico to Mexico, where they spend the winter, and it's like over 3,000 miles, which is pretty amazing for a little butterfly. Think of it flying that far and having the strength to fly across. But I think I've never seen this, but I think they gather together, like in Texas, close to the Gulf of Mexico or in Florida, and they fly in groups to get over to Mexico from here, or to fly from there to come here. So those are some interesting facts, and I thought I would share with you. Well, now to tell you about my journey to become a butterfly lover, and especially a lover of monarch butterflies. Well, I grew up in Michigan, and my father majored in epidemiology in college, and so he was always telling us about all different kinds of creepy crawly bugs, and particularly butterflies. He was a butterfly lover, and I wish he could be sitting here with us now and hear this talk, because I think he'd be really pleased that I had followed in his footsteps. But he had my sister and I, he made us butterfly nets, and we were always chasing the butterflies, and I sort of cringe when I think about that now because I wouldn't dare kill one or catch one because they really are, they've become endangered, which is a sad thing, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I hate to see it happening, so I'm trying to do what I can to inspire people to have milkweed in their yards so that we have more monarch butterflies. But fast forward from Michigan, as I grew older, of course I married Vern, you all know, and we served 4 different churches, 3 in North Carolina and 1 here, or 1 in Florida. And Florida was the place where I really began my love affair with the monarch butterflies. We moved to Clearwater, Florida, and I didn't really know anything about milkweed, but there was some growing in our yard, and one day I just happened to notice it was all full of these little caterpillars. So I was intrigued and did a little research to find out more about them and learn about their life cycle. And at the time, I was a media specialist in an elementary school. So I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to take some to school, to the media center for the children to learn about the metamorphosis. And so I did do that, and the children enjoyed it so much, the teachers were all wanting one for their classroom, so the children in their class could watch them, and they started calling me the butterfly lady. So I guess it kind of stuck. So that was the beginning of my journey in loving butterflies. So I had a little pavilion in the media center, larger than this, so they could come and watch them. I'm going to pass out some cards. You can pass them from table to table that start with, we were fortunate to have a butterfly visit our yard, and it's the different one obviously every year, but every, like August, she comes and lays her eggs on the milkweed that is just beginning to sprout out of the ground. And so it starts with a picture of a butterfly laying an egg, and how I was able to get that picture, God only knows, but there's the process of the laying of an egg and how it develops into a little caterpillar. So I'll let you take a look at those. Let's see. Oh, I'll just tell you about the metamorphosis a little bit. I'm going to go over here, so I'll have to shout. Anyway, when it has eaten enough and is ready to make its chrysalis, it hangs in the shape of a letter J for a short time, and then you can start to see the chrysalis beginning to form from the head all the way up to the top, and it ends up being a beautiful chrysalis, bright green, with a little gold band around the top, and they stay inside that chrysalis for about 2 weeks. And then, as I said before, you can kind of see the wings inside. It gets clear, and you can see when the butterfly is getting ready to come out. It starts to come out little by little. And when it comes out, its body is all full of fluid that it pumps into its wings. And it hangs there on the chrysalis for a short time, and then emerges as a beautiful monarch butterfly. So now you know why I'm so fascinated with that. Just God's creation, how His plan is for them to start with a little tiny egg and grow into something so beautiful. And sometimes I compare it to the resurrection. I think how the butterfly goes into the chrysalis, sort of like the tomb, and of course, Jesus comes out of the tomb like the butterfly emerges from its chrysalis. Such a beautiful comparison, I think, to the metamorphosis of the butterfly. Were you going to ask a question?
Yeah. When it's growing and going through its stages, does it stay around that particular plant? Because I can't remember seeing anything around a yard or anything.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have found that usually when the caterpillar gets ready to make its chrysalis, it goes somewhere else. And I found them in all different places. They've made their chrysalis on the side of my house, on the awnings, on the grill, on the sidewalk. But it's usually a place, where they can hang. They need to hang upside down so that their metamorphosis can continue. But that's why you don't see them, because they usually leave the plant. Sometimes they don't, but often they do leave the plant to go somewhere else to make their chrysalis.
Okay, so they don't hang on that same plant anymore?
No, they leave and go to somewhere. How they can crawl so far, I don't understand. We went on vacation one year. When we came back, the caterpillars that had been on my milkweed crawled probably from like that hill out there outside the door to our patio, which is about this distance, and made their chrysalis on our screen or on the siding. Find them everywhere. It's just fascinating. I don't know. They just have to find their perfect spot, I guess. Yeah, Grace?
I just wondered, when you found it on the grill, did you move it, or does it stay there?
No, you can't disturb them. They have, they attach themselves with just kind of fine little fibers, like, I don't know, kind of like a spider spinning its web. The fibers attach it to wherever it is, and you don't want to bother it. You want to just leave it and watch it.
Generally, how long do butterflies live?
They only live about 2 weeks, so it's a sad thing that they don't live longer than that before they're ready to lay more eggs and create more butterflies.
So you have them in there, when do you take them and put them outside where they can finish growing?
Well, I probably will leave them in here until they're ready to make their chrysalis and let them stay there until they're ready to be released. Because it's really fun to watch the butterflies
They make them in there?
fly away. Yes, they'll make it in
Okay.
here. There's 3 pretty large ones. I've been watching them. As soon as they hang in the shape of a J, I'll know they're getting ready to make their chrysalis.
Okay.
Pretty fascinating.
I have a question. If they only live 2 weeks, how can they fly all the way to the Gulf of Mexico?
That's what I was saying.
Good question. Good question. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on, but they only live that short time, and then they lay their eggs, and another caterpillar, of course, emerges, and until it makes its chrysalis. But it takes several journeys to get all the way back to Mexico. So one butterfly goes a little further toward Mexico, say when they're leaving here, goes a little further, maybe to Alabama, and they stop, and they complete the metamorphosis again, and then the next generation goes a little further. So until they get down to like Texas, and they're ready to fly across to Mexico. Does that answer?
Yes.
So it's pretty fascinating the way God plans their journey.
Isn't that why it's so important to create habitats, right where you are? Because you may have the butterflies that stay here for a little while and make their next ones, and then they fly to Alabama.
Right.
So many places are losing their habitats, right?
Say again?
So many places are losing their habitat.
Oh, yes. Oh,
So there's not a place for the butterflies to go from here to here, make their new babies, and then go
Exactly.
to the next place.
yeah, and I'm going to be talking about that too. It's sad. That's one of the reasons I always encourage, you get me talking about a conversation, I'll eventually be asking them if they have milkweed in their yard. I just am passionate about encouraging people to have it for them because you're exactly right, Cindy. Their habitat is disappearing because of pesticides and climate change and a lot of different things. So we don't have as many as we used to.
You see wildflowers along the highway. Is that ever milkweed, or is there a way?
It could be. Yes, there is a native milkweed. And I remember when I was, probably when we all were young and growing up, it was out in the fields and along the roadsides, and it was everywhere. But now, because of construction and development, a lot of the land where they might have had milkweed has now become housing and developments and what have you. And so there isn't the milkweed that they need.
I'm thinking of the medium in between the two.
Yes.
If the states would plant milkweed.
If the states would plant milkweed, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We need to write whoever.
We need to petition the
Yes.
state to do that. That would be wonderful, but a lot of times they do plant flowers, and that's good
Yes.
too, because the adult butterflies need the nectar from the flowers, and that's a wonderful thing too. Yes?
Is there a certain place in Mexico that they go to?
Tijuana.
Yes, it is. I think it's Tijuana. My daughter's there right now. She'll have to look. No, they do go to a certain place in Mexico. The mountains of Mexico have a certain kind of a tree called oyamel fir trees. And the butterflies, once they make their migration across the Gulf of Mexico to Mexico, they huddle in the oyamel fir trees for the winter. And unfortunately, because of climate change, now it's colder in Mexico like it has been here, and everywhere climate is changing. And sometimes it's so cold for the butterflies that they don't survive the cold. So that's one of the things also that's contributing to the fact that they're drastically decreasing in numbers from the millions that we had in the 1990s. Now, my last, when I read about them, I tried to find out the latest statistics, and the latest one said they were down to about 30,000. From, sad to say, they're down to about 30,000 from the millions we used to have.
Another thing, uneducated people that don't know about butterflies, we pull milkweed and throw it away.
I know. Now you won't do that anymore. and the other thing too is that people see the little caterpillars on it, they're eating their plant.
Yep.
And you don't want to pull the caterpillars off because they're eating. And there are also different kinds of caterpillars. If you have parsley, dill, or fennel growing in your yard,
Oh, really?
you might see the caterpillars from the eastern black swallowtail. You can look for it in this book. I have it laying out here on the table, and I understand we don't have a time limit here today, so you can take a look at the things up here on the table. We can take our time, and I will hang out later to answer questions if you have any more questions. But all butterflies have a host plant. So if you have parsley, dill, or fennel growing in your yard and you see little caterpillars on it, leave them be. They'll develop into a beautiful black, beautiful swallowtail butterfly. So, good question. Don't ever kill a caterpillar. Okay, let's see. I think I've answered a lot of the questions maybe that I was going to tell you about.
Want me to get that in for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Will they completely kill a plant?
They will,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's the reason you keep more plants.
I guess that's right.
You know about microphones.
A little bit.
Okay. Okay, I think I've answered a lot. I've already told you a lot of the things I was going to tell you in my talk. But I did want to say this time of year, it's a good time for me to be giving this talk because this is the time of year that the monarchs have made their way from Mexico all the way from the different stages. Each generation has finally gotten to North Carolina by September and October. So you probably will hopefully see some, I hope, in your yards or in your adventures, wherever you are, you might see these beautiful butterflies. And of course, I want you to recognize a monarch by the time we leave. There's one on the chart there and also on the table up here. So you can see it's an orange and black butterfly. So always thank them for coming to visit you.
Do different regions have different butterflies or the color of the, I mean,
Well,
when you have, your varieties?
there are a variety of butterflies.
Do the things
They're all
look different?
different colors. You could look through this catalog here. I have this in my
I'm talking
media
about
center.
The caterpillar, do they all look like that?
Mhm. The monarch caterpillars all look alike. They're black and yellow and white stripes,
But other caterpillars are different colors?
different colors.
And that's a different kind of.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. You can Google it, and if you have one in your yard, you can take a look at Google it and see what kind it might be and what it might need to lay its eggs. That's something I'm trying to learn more about myself. I'd like to have different things growing in my yard that butterflies will come to and lay their eggs. Good question.
So have you had butterflies this year in your yard?
Oh, yes. They love the butterfly bush. If you have a butterfly bush in your yard, you probably know they gravitate toward it for some reason. I think they just like the nectar from the butterfly bush.
Is that the
And-
butterfly bush over here?
Yes.
They came to my butterfly bush,
Rita.
and they also came to the lantana.
Oh, they love, any nectar-producing plants that you have. Some of them are on the sheet I gave you there, I think.
Some of that.
Yeah.
I
There's
saw one.
the name of some of the plants that they love. Of course, they love nectar, so if you have flowers in your yard, they will come to it for their own food, for the nectar for them to survive, to be able to lay some eggs. So, some good questions. The butterflies that are here now have completed their metamorphosis, and I've never seen one, but I'm told that the butterflies that emerge from their chrysalis this time of year, when the weather starts to get cooler, become much larger and stronger than most of the other butterflies. They call them Methuselahs, or just giant butterflies that are larger than the natural ones that normally you would see. They're larger and stronger, and I'm told that they're strong enough to fly all the way back to, say, Texas, when they're ready to make their trip to Mexico. So I don't think I've ever seen one that I thought was much larger than the others, but keep a watch out for them. They should be here. They should be in our area now. They should be getting, now that the weather's turning cooler. My friend, who's also a butterfly lover, said he thought they were migrating now because he's seen a few in his yard each day, and they may be getting ready to migrate now that the weather is cooler, beginning their trip back to Mexico where it's warm for the winter.
So Kristy, next year, you see butterflies in the summer, but is it the monarchs that normally come like late summer, early fall?
That's a good question, a real good question. The monarchs that we see are like the great-great-grandchildren of the ones that were here last year. That's part of the mystery. I just can't get my arms around how did the grandchildren of the ones that were in Mexico come here? Come here. How do they know the way? How do they find us? But the butterflies that I've seen in my yard are like the third generation of the ones that were in Mexico. And they're the children of the ones that hatched in Mexico to get ready to make the trip to see us, if that makes any sense. Can you all hear me over there? I'm not paying very much attention to you. So that's pretty fascinating, I think, to try to imagine how the great-great-grandchildren of the ones that were here last year make their way from Mexico to get here.
And tell them how to get here,
Yeah.
just like hummingbirds.
Yeah, well, that's the way God made them. He somehow gives them the sense that, in His wonderful gift of creation, that He has given them the sense to find their way here. Yes?
I was just wondering, because like you're talking about the migration is from Mexico into the United States,
Mhm.
and you were in Florida. So it's like there's a pathway that they come and they migrate up all the way to Maine.
There is.
So then they turn around, so
the ones that you're calling the great-great-grandchildren, do they come here to North Carolina, and maybe another group goes to Maine? Or are they all on the pilgrimage north, and then all on the pilgrimage back?
There's a flyway that goes across the central United States, and they seem to know where the pathway is to find their way here, and of course up into Michigan, the Midwest, and even up into Canada.
Do they fly in flocks?
I believe they do, but I've never seen a flock of them, but they do like to company.
They discovered a place, I think, and they were just thick in the air flying.
I know they fly in flocks when they leave Texas or wherever, or Florida, to fly across the Gulf. They do fly in groups or flocks.
And then certain places they will land on a tree, and so the tree is full of them.
Right.
And then they do whatever it is they do and continue.
There is a page in this book, it's called Butterflies of Florida, and there's a page, if you turn a couple pages over, there are pictures of the butterflies on the fir trees in Mexico by the thousands. They just gather in those particular trees for whatever reason, just they huddle to stay warm over the winter, and it's amazing. I would love to see that someday. It's something I would like to have on my bucket list. If I ever went to Mexico, I'm not sure I would want to do that. Anyway, I'd love to see that. But you're right, they do. They cluster together in the trees. Must be amazing to see them. And there is a video, as long as I'm talking about that, I'll tell you, there is a video clip called Monarch Butterflies, The Great Migration. And I actually found it when I was just Googling to find one to show at my garden club at Trilogy. I happened to find it, so if you Google it, you can find Monarch Butterflies, The Great Migration. And did I put down there? I forgot that I put it on there. And probably you could, pull it up on your computer or even up onto your widescreen with YouTube. There are a lot of them. You can see and learn more about their migration and a little bit more about them.
Yes. So the monarch butterflies are not just from Mexico to the United States. There must be in other countries, like maybe they go south.
Oh, sure. I'm sure they do. Yeah, some will probably stay in Mexico, and it's warm down there. I know Florida has a lot of monarchs also because of the warm weather.
South America,
Mm-hmm.
down through there, yeah.
I don't know if monarchs go to those places, but that's a good thing to learn about. Google it, find out where they go. My daughter lived in Hawaii for a while. She said she never saw one there. I do know they fly as far as Canada, but I don't know if they leave the Western Hemisphere and go anywhere beyond here.
In different parts of the world, they have different types of butterflies that
They do.
They ordered Africa, maybe, from Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
Also crossing the Atlantic either, ladies, you know what I'm saying? So it must be just a North American, a phenomenon.
Well, there are many beautiful tropical butterflies. If you ever go to a butterfly, we went to one called the Butterfly Pavilion in Branson, Missouri in March. And they had a whole building called the Butterfly Pavilion just dedicated to butterflies. And you could go in, it's like a rainforest, and they would land on you. They give you a little cup of nectar, and the butterflies will land on, sip your nectar, and they were landing on my head and all over me. I just was thrilled. I was in butterfly heaven. Just wonderful. But many different kinds of butterflies there that we don't have here because they stay in a warmer tropical climate and don't get this far north. Any other questions? Yes, Susan?
So when you see the butterfly weed out in the fields, can you harvest the seeds? Is there a certain time to go out there and pull the pods?
Good.
And then do you dry the seeds, or how do you go about harvesting your own seeds?
That's a good question. Milkweed has a pod that's maybe about that long and kind of that shape, full of hundreds of seeds. And when the pods form, you can just collect them and collect the seeds, and you can let them dry. You could actually plant them, or you could let them dry and plant them later, but there are thousands of seeds in those pods. I put a little pod in the bottom of this caterpillar keeper, but does that answer your question? Cindy?
That's what these are.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. You have a little pouch on your table for you to plant the butterflies, milkweed seeds in your yard, and I hope you will
Do
do that.
Do stores sell them in little packets, like cucumber seeds or something?
I have noticed that Lowe's, in the display where they sell different kinds of seeds, they have one called butterfly weed, and that is a good place to get some more. Butterfly weed is different. It's low to the ground and has orange flowers on it, but there's a lot of different kinds, and I have used those seeds from Lowe's. They germinate and create milkweed for your yard. Good question.
The other day, Kristy, when I was leaving your house about this stuff, I stopped at Bradford Farms. Any of you know where Bradford Farms is? On 73.
Yeah.
They have milkweed seeds there. And
For you to buy.
for sale, yeah.
Oh.
They did. So after you got me on enthused,
Oh, it's good to know. Nurseries sometimes have them. If you can be fortunate enough to find one that has them for sale, you can get more. But hopefully you get 3 or 4 plants out of the seeds that I'm giving you. So, and they are perennial, so they come back every year once you get them going.
How tall does these get?
These that I have here, that is the, which one is the one? It's up in the upper left corner of that square there, Susan.
It is butterfly weed.
Butterfly weed. And it does get about this tall. So it's tall. But there are varieties that are shorter if you want something shorter for your garden. But a lot of them are pretty tall.
Just going to say, does anybody remember walking along the roads with the little and the milkweeds? And I remember taking the pods and breaking them open, and they would all fly like a dandelion.
They're like a dandelion. You're exactly right. That's the way God made them, to disseminate them all over. But the kind you saw has a very large pod about that size. And that's the native milkweed that grows in the fields. So it does have the larger pods on it. You break them open and they will fly everywhere. So that particular kind, I don't usually give seeds out of that because it is invasive and it will take over your garden if you have, because it's a weed. And that's kind of the way weeds grow. If you have a garden, you know what weeds do. But yeah, but that's a good one to have. I have some of that seed, and I'm thinking about, don't tell anybody, but I'm thinking about spreading it around Trilogy and this.
Way to go.
I don't know if it's against the rules, but.
Forgiveness and permission.
Every place there's a developer tearing down trees, throw invasive milkweed.
There you go. Just throw invasive milkweed out in the field or everywhere.
Which one is the most invasive?
It's the native milkweed, and it's not on any information that I gave you, but if you see it out in a field, you'll recognize it by the large pods, and it has a pink flower. It's about that tall, usually.
Yeah, very pretty.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
We don't consider it a weed.
The cornflower, there was a road between Boone and Banner Elk, and there was purple cornflowers all on the side of the road. And I was amazed to see thousands of butterflies.
Wow.
over there. And I never dreamed that that's, thank you.
Probably maybe planted by the department.
Wow, no,
Yeah.
just not.
Just
So
growing
I'm
wild.
glad to find that out, I'll be planting more of these things.
Yeah.
But see, I didn't realize that that's what it was.
It was just a weed, wasn't it?
Some people call them weeds. We call them food for the butterflies. Cindy?
There is a department, and it's part of the, I know in North Carolina, but some other states too, in Texas especially, where somebody who's with the road department, like you'll see sometimes when you're driving up toward Raleigh or Durham or anywhere, you'll see some huge middle of the roads where there's just flowers growing like crazy. And they are looking more and more about doing that now, to help, you know, not only to beautify the area, but to also to bring back butterflies and bees. Bees also.
Yeah. I hope they're doing more of that. We sure need it. And it's so exciting to see just fields of beautiful flowers that have been. I guess they're planted by the City Road Department or.
Well, there's a newer department with some of these agencies that are a little more environmentally conscious, and so they're trying to do some of those things. Some people just have a town. In the town, they'll decide to adopt, you know, one of the mediums or one of the different things and entryways to the cities or things like that. Well, they'll do that. And then you might have a gardening group that decides to do that, to make an area that looks prettier.
Well, I hope more and more towns and cities and states adopt that resolution. It's wonderful to see that when it happens.
If anyone's a part of any kind of committee or city or organization like the Parks and Recreation Department there, if they have greenways or developing greenways or new developments, if new developments are going in, there's usually some sort of requirement about trees and bushes and all that kind of thing. But if you could meet with someone or talk to whoever's doing that in the development and get them to do that along some of the greenways or byways or areas that, you know, so they don't use pesticides, that instead they plant natural plants that will bring.
Good idea. Just pass it along wherever you get a chance.
The new North Mecklenburg Regional Recreation Center on 115 is a fabulous place. But their goal is agriculture. So I'm sure they'll be doing more along the greenways, and they have a lot of space there. So I will check next time.
Good.
With whoever is in charge of the agriculture, but that's their theme. Every Mecklenburg County Recreation Senior Center has a theme, and the one here is agriculture.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
What, can you hear me back there?
Yeah, just.
Oh, we need to watch the time? Yeah. Okay. I know you had a lot of good questions, and let's see if I forgot anything. Well, why are they endangered? That was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Of course, the extreme weather change, I think I told you about that. Freezing weather, the habitat loss. In one source I read, there were over 150 million acres of monarch habitat, milkweed habitat, had been destroyed because of building and construction, and that's, you know, that's progress, but it also is a loss for the monarch butterflies and others. They have genetically modified corn and soybeans now that the farmers have been successful in having it modified, so the pesticides can be sprayed on it. It doesn't hurt the corn and soybeans, but it kills plants like milkweed and other butterfly plants, so that's another reason why it's contributing to their endangerment. The loss of nectar-producing plants. And now recently I heard clandestine logging in Mexico of the fir trees where they gather in the winter. And it's, you know, against the law, but I guess it's not something they can control. clandestine logging there. And, well, I guess you know now why I'm so passionate about the monarch butterflies. And I hope I've passed on some good information to you and encouraging you to plant milkweed with the seeds I gave you in your yard.
Kristy, if you're ever in California, be sure to visit Pacific Grove, where the monarchs come back to Pacific Grove every year. It's just absolutely spectacular to see that.
Wow.
Southern California.
It's the nest in the pine trees.
They nest in the pine trees.
Yep. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because the western coast of California is another place where...
Oh, we lived out, well, he was
Well,
born
of
and
course
raised
you
there.
did.
You can see it.
Yeah, you knew all about that. And from seeing, I would love to see that someday.
It's
Wow.
beautiful.
I gotta put that on my bucket list. But west of the Rockies, the butterflies there go to California rather than Mexico. So that's probably what you saw.
Kristy,
Yeah.
I know this is going to be off the beaten wall, but what about butterflies that attach themselves to you when you're working? Have you ever been in your garden and the butterflies will just stay, they hover around you, no matter what you do?
I'm laying eggs.
They don't hover, they hover, don't land. But if you, ask talking about me. No, they're in my garden, they do that, but I have my friends here today, and she has personal experience with it. If you don't mind listening a minute.
Well, my mother died with cancer in 2005, and hospice in Statesville had taken care of her. So in the spring, for everybody who was passed of cancer during that year, they have a reception, and they send you a butterfly.
Oh.
And so you go up there, and they have refreshments, and everybody eats and prays and all. And then you all go outside, and you just let the butterflies go.
Oh.
And so that's what my father and I were together, and that's what we did. And we let the butterflies go, and they were just all over the place, and the crowd was everywhere. But this butterfly, this monarch butterfly, just flew down on me and stuck. And I could not get him off. I kept knocking at him and knocking at him, and he would not let go.
Were you wearing red?
And I don't know what I was wearing.
They are attracted to
But
red.
I remember a man behind me saying, "That's not natural." and so I thought I was rid of him, and we started to go back in the building, and he flew down and attached to me again.
Oh.
He would not let go, and I couldn't let him go in the building. We finally got him off of him, but that butterfly was not going anywhere.
That's interesting. He just loved you.
I just said, that was my daddy's spirit. That's how I took it.
Absolutely. Did he attach to your clothing or your skin?
No, by skiing.
Skin.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my story about monarch butterflies. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them.
Thank you.
We had a memorial for my mom, and we ordered them. You have to order them ahead. They come in a little packet.
Yeah.
And that each one of the kids let them know.
Oh.
And the funeral home too also does something like that. We'll have a butterfly release or something. I don't know. You can just call.
And it's, you know, a symbol of new life when they're released into the air. Butterflies also, you know, historically have been known as a symbol of new life. But before I go any further, I want to recognize a very special visitor who is with us today. Keela Johnson is sitting in the corner at the back table. Stand up, Keela. Keela is the publisher of a brand new magazine called LKN. Well, this is their premier issue, and I was very honored to be asked to write an article about butterflies for their magazine. It's on page 68. There is a magazine for all of you. Keela is graciously donating one for us all to have one. But look at this article.
Whoa.
Wow.
I saw that. Very nice. Yeah, you're published.
Thank you, Keela. And there's an article on Bethel Presbyterian Church on page 71 also. So don't overlook that.
Probably should skip the questions, we got that.
Oh, do we?
Is that okay?
Let's skip the questions.
Just tell them to be thinking about those things, is that all right?
Okay.
Otherwise, we might people get more crowd.
All right. My time is, I've gone over my time, I'm afraid. I just got so enthusiastic about it, I can't quit talking. But on your table, there is a page of questions for us as members of Bethel and folks that love the church to think about how this process of metamorphosis could be applied to the church. How are we, when we are going through changes in our church? I'm not going to have a copy of questions. Something for you to think about. I think my time is up, but think about how something ugly like the caterpillar can morph into something lovely like a butterfly. But we live in a secular culture of judgment and shaming that sometimes spills into God's church. What changes do we need to make to be the lovely butterfly God desires of His church, to be a symbol of resurrection and hope? The top 100 churches in America have these characteristics: culture of acceptance. People can come as they are. They don't judge because we all need Jesus. They embrace diversity. The top 40 fastest growing churches in America are all non-denominational and part of their metamorphosis from how the old mainline churches were living out church. They seem to thrive on the energy of constant growth and change. How can we better incorporate new people and ideas into our church here at Bethel? Peter Drucker noticed these characteristics of top 10 100 church leaders: tolerance of ambiguity, trust, risk-taking, adaptability, collaboration, and global perspective. What are some of these traits that could help empower Bethel's ministries? I think probably some of you might need to leave, and I don't want to infringe on your personal time. But if you have time and you want to sit at your table and talk about those, it would be.
Let's give Kristy a round of applause.
Okay.